It's a story about a fellow named Moshe Dickstein. He lived grew up in in South Tel Aviv, southern Tel Aviv, in the slums area. So he grew up in a rough region, but he became a rabbi. He joined Chabad and he became a rabbi, and he used to go visit people in the jails all over Israel. There was a jail he used to go visit in Be'er Sheva. He used to travel from Tel Aviv to Be'er Sheva. Just hold on one second. He used to travel to Be'er Sheva and to go there on a rickety road down with the car, and you ride Be'er Sheva to the prison. It's a real serious prison. This is the talk about hard-nosed criminals. It wasn't a simple prison. And they used to go visit all the Jewish people there. As Chabad, they put on tefillin with everybody. But there was one room over there for the most difficult prisoner. There was one room that he never went to. They said, no, you can't go there because this guy is like a real grobyan. He's a real roughie. And we don't want to take any chances if you're going there. So one time the rabbi says, Moshe says to the people, to the prison wardens, he says, come on, please let me go. The guy is Jewish. I need to go speak to him. So they said, okay, you know what? I mean, we'll give you like half an hour. You can go in there. If you don't come out after half an hour, we're going to come and get you because you're going at your own risk to this guy. He walks in over there to the room. They bring the rabbi into the room. The rabbi comes in. They close the door behind him. And there's a 7-foot tall guy over there, and the rabbi says, he says, Shalom Aleichem. And the guy over there says, Aleichem Shalom. And he gives him a hand and he shakes his hand. The rabbi's like shivering for this big, massive human being he was the fear of the whole prison. And the rabbi says, what are you doing here? So he says, I'm here to study with you Torah. The guy says, okay, we'll study Torah. I never heard of Torah in my life. He says, this is the teachings of the Jewish people. He says, you're coming to learn with me? Me, the famous prisoner? Yeah, I'm coming to study with you. Everybody should have an opportunity to learn. So the rabbi sits down with him, and he starts with olive bays, and he teaches him. He's teaching, the guy is telling him beautiful stories. The rabbi was able to tell beautiful stories, and he's teaching him the stories of the Torah. And at the end, the guys come in, and they say, hey, Rabbi, the half an hour is up. The rabbi says, just give me one more moment. And he tells this hardened criminal, he says, would you like to put on tefillin? He says, what's tefillin? So don't you know that thing you put on our bar mitzvahs? Oh, yeah, I remember. He says, did you ever put on tefillin? He says, no, I never put. My friends put it on, but I never put on tefillin. So the rabbi says, okay, we're going to put on tefillin. But tell me, with which hand do you write with? So I'll know which, because you're supposed to put tefillin on the left hand, on the weaker hand. So he asked him, which hand do you write with? He says, I never wrote. I was thrown out of school. So he says, okay, which hand do you punch people with? He says, oh, punch? Yeah, with the right hand. Okay, so you're a righty. So he put tefillin on his left arm, and as soon as he rolled up his sleeve, this hardened criminal, the rabbi had a shocker because he had, all these tattoos. His whole arm was all tattooed from top to bottom with some obscenities, all kinds of things. This is a toughened criminal. So the rabbi gives a look. He's shocked by it. The man asks, "Can I still put on tefillin?" He says, "Yeah, no problem." The rabbi he puts him on tefillin, and he says with him, he says, "Repeat after me, Shema Yisrael Hashem." He says the whole thing, and the guys are knocking at the door outside. They want to go, come on, time to go out. The rabbi said, "Just another minute," and he finished the whole Shema with him. And the guy seemed to be like emotionally moved by putting on tefillin. And the rabbi left afterwards. And he came back next week. He used to come every week. And the guy said, he asked the fellow, the warden again, can I go to that hardened criminal, that terrible room? So they say, sure, you can go. And he goes back, he goes, about your own risk. We'll do the same thing that we did last week. He says, no problem. He goes in, and he sits down with the guy, and the guy is like, he's thirsty, you could see. This criminal is thirsty for study. And he studies with him for the half an hour. Then at the end they come there and they say, Rabbi, we got to go. He says, no, one more minute. I have to do a mitzvah with him. And he takes out his tefillin. And as the guy rolls up his sleeve, he gives a look. And he sees the tattoos on his arm are gone. And in fact, the whole arm is raw. He said, Rabbi, I saw last week you were shocked by my tattoos. Obviously, it's not a good idea to put on tefillin with tattoos. He says, a whole week I was using salt. I rubbed off the entire tattoo so that you should feel comfortable to put on tefillin properly on me today. So the rabbi says, oh, wow, incredible. He put on the tefillin, and the guy, you could see, he was in pain. And the rabbi puts on the tefillin very loosely. He says, no, Rabbi, make it tighter so I should feel the tefillin and feel the presence of God. The rabbi put on tefillin. And the fellow today is a real Baal Tshuva. He returned to Hashem with all his heart and his soul after he left the prison. He got in touch with the rabbi. This is an incredible story, the power of tefillin, you know. I always say there's a great Kabbalistic insight into mitzvahs. Sometimes, you know, you try to teach people things, and you can't teach them. But you get them to experience a physical mitzvah. Sometimes that reaches to the deepest levels of the soul. Like a lot of times people say, what's Shabbos? I say, I can't explain you Shabbos. You need to try Shabbos. You need to experience it. When you experience the physical mitzvah, it taps into a level of the soul that only a physical mitzvah can accomplish. And so this is the story of Moshe Dickstein, with this guy. And this is the story of all the mitzvot, but especially tefillin. Tefillin to me is one of the most mystical Kabbalistic things around, you know. It looks Kabbalistic, it looks mystical, you know. Do you ever see the tefillin? What tefillin look like? Tefillin for young boys, it's a thing they do at the bar mitzvah. You know, Elie Wiesel, who was in the camps. He was in Buchenwald, I think, where he was, right? So he was in the concentration camps. He said that every morning he would go with his father, Olav Shalom. He would go and put on tefillin. They had a place where they woke up 4 in the morning before the roll call. They had a place where they knew they gave some pieces of bread. They got some rations of bread. A guy would give them some tefillin. They'd make a deal to get the tefillin. But every morning his father used to schlep him, and they used to go put on tefillin together. This is in Buchenwald, in the concentration camps. Can you imagine how important it is for the Jewish people? Many people have stories about how they smuggled in a little pair of tefillin into the camps. Tefillin was always a very important part of our Jewishness. You know. When I was just recently, that's really about over a year ago, in a place called Cape Town. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's a place in South Africa, very beautiful city, Cape Town. So I went there for a wedding of my nephew from Israel. Married a young girl who's the daughter of the rabbi in the Sea Point Shul, Rabbi Weinberg. He once spoke on our Zoom. A very nice rabbi, and his daughter got married to my nephew. And we went there, and just before the chuppah, they did an outdoor chuppah. You know, remember those days when you had weddings with a lot of people? Those were the days, my friend. So they had a beautiful wedding. They had it, like, I think, for the first time ever. They had it outside in the middle of the street in Cape Town, right on the water. Sea Point is right on the water there. And it's a street that leads right to the beach. That's where the shul is over there. It's called the Maria Road Synagogue. And we're sitting there outside, and it was time to write the Tanoim, to write one of the marriage contracts, to sign the ketubah. And so a guy storms in over there, from a neighbor from the street. Says, "What's going on over here? Why are you blocking the street?" It's a French guy. He was speaking like with a French accent, you know. He was shouting, he starts shouting. You know, "What's going on over here? Why are you blocking off the street? Why are you blocking the road? You know, people live on the street. Like, you can't block off the road." There's a family said, you know, "It's just for a little while, we're closing off the road." And there was a fellow that came from France, a shaliach from France, a Chabad guy, also a relative of the family. He was there, and you know, there's a Frenchy guy, so he starts speaking to him in French. And the guy was very excited, you know, he heard his home, like he was originally from France. So he started speaking to him. He says, "Where do you live?" He says, "I live across the street." He says, "Did you ever walk into the synagogue before?" He said, "No, I never walked into the synagogue." I didn't understand this. This was translated to me afterwards, right? "I never walked into the synagogue before." So why aren't you coming? "You live on the street of the synagogue?" The Chabad rabbi asked him. "You never walked into the synagogue in Cape Town, right? Across the street?" He says, "No. After what I saw the Holocaust, I'll never ever step into a synagogue." So what happened? He says, "When I came, it was right before my bar mitzvah." He says, "The Nazis came in front of my eyes, they dragged my father away just right when I was supposed to have my bar mitzvah. And I lost my father then, and I lost my whole family, and I was the only survivor." So he said, "After that, I swore I'll never walk into a synagogue ever again. If God can allow this to happen." So the rabbi was a smart guy. He says, "You know, there are many ways of taking revenge on Hitler." He said, "Hitler tried to wipe out Judaism. So what did you do? You gave in to him? You gave him exactly what he wanted? That you don't walk into a synagogue?" He says the opposite. You should walk into a synagogue. He says here, the rabbi pulls out right on the spot, a pair of tefillin. He says, "If you want to take real revenge from Hitler," he says, "put on these tefillin. Put on the tefillin, the bar mitzvah that you never had. Have the bar mitzvah right now here at the shul." Very clever rabbi. And the guy, believe it or not, the guy says yes. He put him on tefillin on the spot. And as he was putting on tefillin, the rabbi told him, "This is your bar mitzvah that you never had." The guy started to cry like a baby. He came throughout the whole wedding. He sat in the back seat of the wedding, and he sat and he watched the Jewish wedding take place on the street. And he was like, people saw him, and he was very emotionally moved by the whole event. But this is the power of tefillin, I believe. Tefillin has a power of like bringing out the deepest parts of our soul. So why don't women wear tefillin? We have a lot of women here, so they ask, why don't women wear tefillin? We know that all time-related commandments women are exempt from because their primary mitzvah is taking care of the home. So the Torah exempts them from all the time-related commandments. Mitzvahs like talis and tefillin and all those kind of mitzvahs, women are exempt from. Although there were in the historically there were some women that used to wear talis. In fact, there were even some women that used to wear tefillin, Rashi's daughters, but they're exempt from the mitzvahs. And the Shulchan Aruch says that most mitzvahs the women are exempt, they can do. But the Code of Jewish Law says that tefillin not. If you're exempt from tefillin, you don't wear tefillin. And there's a good reason for that, because there was a time in Jewish history where many pious people took upon themselves not to wear tefillin. Because it says when you wear tefillin, you need to be of sound mind. You have to concentrate. And if you don't, it's an affront to tefillin is such a holy thing. So there were many people throughout the years, even men, that didn't wear tefillin because tefillin, you have to have what's called a guf naki. You need to have a clean body and soul. And so many men even didn't wear tefillin because of that reason. But later on, it was established that the men should wear the tefillin because because they stopped wearing tefillin. The Torah says to wear tefillin. But women, it says in the code of Jewish laws, since it's only an optional mitzvah, the Torah never commanded them to do it. So therefore, it says women didn't take upon themselves to do those mitzvahs. Many of the other time-related mitzvahs, like shofar and other mitzvahs, which are time-related, the women accepted on themselves to do. But the mitzvah of tefillin, the code says that women understood the piety that you need to reach. So men have no choice; they have to put on the tefillin, but women don't. Anyways, but there are great mystical benefits of tefillin, obviously, because tefillin is a very, very spiritual thing, and I'm going to show you now a pair of tefillin. We're going to look at it actually hands-on, like we did last week with the talis. We'll look at the tefillin, and we'll try to understand the deeper meaning of the tefillin, and also the mystical representations and the mystical benefits of tefillin. So here we go. So here I have a tefillin bag, and if you can see it, Chabad Markham, pair of tefillin. You see tefillin? Okay, you see it over here? So this is over here. It's in honor of Rabbi Gitlin's father, Olav Shalom, sponsor to the shul. We have this pair of tefillin, you see it? Okay. Tefillin usually come in a bag, a nice velvet bag. Sometimes it comes in a leather bag, a velvet bag. The bag is not so essential as much as what's in it. So the tefillin, the Torah says, the mitzvah of tefillin, the Torah says 4 times in the Torah. It says you shall put it as a sign on your arm and as a symbol between your eyes. And obviously everything is with oral tradition. If you just read the Torah literally, you would never know what the tefillin is, because a sign on your arm and a symbol between, that's all the Torah says. What's a sign and what's a symbol? So there was a simultaneous with the giving of the Torah. There was an oral tradition which Moses received. Moses went to God and asked, what is this sign? What is the symbol? And God described it to him. And that is the tradition that we have going back to Sinai. Exactly what the tefillin look like. Because nobody can make this stuff up. It's like, okay, so here you have a pair of tefillin. Okay, you have tefillin. So there's 2 parts of tefillin. The Torah says 4 times in the Torah. It says you should put it as a sign on your arm and as a symbol between your eyes. So we have the 2 tefillin, the hand tefillin and the head tefillin. One box you place on the hand, the other one on the head. The tefillin, what's inside the tefillin? It's almost like the mezuzah. The mezuzah has the Shema Yisrael, which is on the wall. The tefillin also has the Shema Yisrael in it. But tefillin, the mitzvah of tefillin is mentioned 4 times in the Torah. So it has 4 scrolls in the head tefillin, 4 scrolls, with each one of the 4, one of them being the Shema, and the other 3 times where the Torah mentions the mitzvah of tefillin. 2 times in the book of Exodus, and 2 times in the book of Deuteronomy. The mitzvah of tefillin is mentioned. It will say more or less, Vaya lecha laos ayadcha. It should be a sign on your hand, and as a totafot bein einecha, as a symbol between your eyes. Now the oral tradition, again, if you just read the Torah simply, you'd think that between your eyes means over here. But the truth is no. The tefillin is meant to be put on right over here, on top of the head. Okay, not between your eyes. Because if you just read literally, it says the Karaites, or the people that were literalists of the Torah, there was groups over the years, different breakaway groups, that they find the Torah literally. They actually put the tefillin right there. Can't really fit much between your eyes, but that's where they put the tefillin. But the oral tradition tells us, no, it means it should be facing between your eyes. So you draw a line between your eyes all the way up to your head, and the tefillin actually goes right up there. Now, show you the tefillin. This is the tefillin on the hand. Okay, this is the hand tefillin. I'm going to open up first the hand tefillin. Okay, here's the hand tefillin. Little box that comes on it. So here you go. Hey, this is the hand, the tefillin, right? So the tefillin is a leather box. It's perfectly square. As you see over here, it's square all the way around and around. And then there's a piece which comes on the bottom that holds up the tefillin. But the tefillin primarily is this top box. And that box is exactly square. The length, the width, and the height are identical. And then there is the bottom piece where the tefillin, where it lies, the tefillin. But that's a separate piece. It's called the mavarta, the titura. That's this part on the bottom. But the actual tefillin is a box itself. Now the tefillin, as you see over here, is sewn. It's sewn in over there, right? It's sewn, and inside there, in the box, there is a parchment, which has within it all the 4 portions of the Torah, where it speaks the mitzvah of wearing tefillin. And then you have leather straps which go on the hand. So this is the tefillin of the hand. And then you have, the Torah says you should place it on your hand. So I'll show you. Place it on your hand, like right over there, like that, right? And it faces on your skin, obviously, and it faces your heart. It always has to face the heart. Okay. So let's just talk for a moment about the tefillin on the hand. Is this tefillin, and then we have the second tefillin, which is the tefillin of the head. So we take that out. Demonstration looks a little bit different. It's also like a box, but this box, if you give a look mystically, you'll see it different than this box. The yad is one box, a singular box. This is a box, a singular box, but if you look carefully, you see there's 4 compartments. There's 4 boxes that are put together. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You see it? There's 4 boxes. I'm trying to show you as best as I can. Okay, there's 4 boxes. That means on the head tefillin, there's actually 4 compartments. It's almost like little compartments inside the box, the 4 separate boxes, which, and if you look also mystically, you find on the top tefillin, on the tefillin of the head, what do you see? What do you see on the tefillin here? On the tefillin that goes on the head? Do you see something there?
Yeah.
What do you see? We see the letter Shin. You see the letter Shin?
Yeah.
And if you look on the other side, you also see, what do you see on this side?
Shin.
Also a Shin, right?
Yeah.
But what's the difference between the 2 Shins I showed you? Do you see a difference?
One's got 3 arms, one's got 4 arms.
Ah, very good. Very good, Eddie. Shkech. One has 3 arms and one has 4 arms. So these are all mystical ideas that I'm going to speak to and try to explain to you, understand the mystical significance. So normally the letter Shin has three heads. That's the way the Shin looks. But over here, the Shin is like that. 4. On one side it's 3, on one side it's 4. So there are many mystical reasons given for that, but we'll get to that momentarily. First I want to speak a little bit about what the tefillin are. The tefillin, it says, you should place it a sign on your arm, facing your heart, and on your head. So basically, those are the 3 most important faculties that we have. What is that? Our arm, which represents our action. Our heart is our feelings. And our head, that's our mind, our brain. So what does God want with the tefillin? Tefillin, God says, and you shall tie it. Tie it as a sign on your arms and as a symbol between your eyes. So what the Torah basically is saying with the tefillin is, the tefillin is a commitment every morning to tie ourselves to God. But not just to tie ourselves, but to actually be like meshed with God. It's almost like a spiritual knotting of ourselves to God in heaven. So we are tying all our major faculties, our hand, which represents our action, our heart, which represents our emotions, and the seat of the mind, which is the brain, which is in the head, is our mind. So we are tying. It's almost like a marriage. You know, there are many people when they put on the tefillin, they recite the verse, and I will marry you, God. It's a verse from the prophets. Varastichli li'olam. And I will be engaged with you, O God. So there almost is like a marriage with God that is being accomplished through so the tefillin, the mystical aspect of the tefillin is is tying our mind with the mind of God, which is generally done through study. Tying our hearts with God, the emotions, which are usually done through prayer. And tying our actions, which is generally done through the acts of the mitzvot. But symbolically and spiritually, it's a spiritual alignment with the divine. That's what the tefillin is. It's tying ourselves, it's marrying God. Every morning when men put on the tefillin, that's the symbolism of it. So, in fact, when the tefillin on the hand are put on, the first thing we do is we place the tefillin. Like I said, the tefillin goes on your. Usually you do it on the arm, but I'm just giving a demonstration. You put it on, and you put it like it goes right over there on the arm. See it? It goes on the arm, and it faces the heart. And then we do like 3 times over the hand. Some people, to make the Hebrew letter shin, you make a shin on the arm. Some people do the shin on the bottom of their arm. But it's 3 straps, like the 10 Commandments. You have the 3, and then you have the 7. We know in the Kabbalah there's a lot about 3 and 7. So there are 7 straps that go around the arm. You do seven wounds of the straps here. You see it? Of this goes on the arms, right? Just give you a little look at what it looks like. Right? So it goes, put it on like this, 7 times. It goes around the arm. Okay, I'm not giving you a perfect demonstration, but you go wound up 7 times. So 3 times on the top, which is a shin, on the arm, and then on the upper part of the arm. On the lower arm, we place 7 times. 7 is representative in the Kabbalah of the 7 emotions. 3 of the shin, that represents the 3 intellects, Chabad. In the Kabbalah, it speaks about 10 sfirot. It's Chochmah, Bina, and Das. And then there's Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Chod, Yesod, Malchus. Those are the 10 divine attributes. We know 10 is a big number. There's the 10 utterances the world was created with. There's the 10 commandments of God. There's the 10 tests. Everything is the number 10. So we have 10 straps which go on the arm. And then we place also the arm, the tefillin is also placed at the end on the fingers, and it goes on the middle finger, almost like a ring on the finger. It goes something like that. You see? So the many people, when they put that on, I mentioned, they say, Va'arastichli, that I am betrothed to you, O God. And that's why it's placed on the finger. It's sort of, it goes around the finger, like, it gives a, see, on the finger goes like that. It's almost like a ring of marriage. So the Kabbalists say that's like the ring of marriage, that we tie ourselves. We tie a knot with God. We commit ourselves to each other. Yeah. They say there's a famous thing about marriage. There are the 3 rings. There's why the 3 rings? There's the engagement ring, there's the marriage ring, and then there's the suffer ring. I guess that's why we go 3 times around, because we get a little bit of that too. And by being connected to God, it's not always easy, right? We get a little suffering too as a result of that. When you're married to God, everybody blames you for everything. If anything goes wrong in America, if there's a problem with Trump, it's the Jews' problem. It's always like that. So we always get blamed for it. So we get a little suffering too. But that's the ring of marriage that goes on the tefillin on the arm. So the arm, remember, you have the 3 for the shin, and then you have the 7 straps, which is the 7 emotions, and then you have the ring around the finger, which is symbolic of our being betrothed, so to speak, to God. So there's a lot of symbolism. And which arm do we place the tefillin on? We place it on which hand? Does anyone know which hand you put the tefillin on? You mentioned it before. Anyone?
On your weaker hand.
Yeah, the tefillin is placed on the weaker arm, and that's quite an interesting thing, because the Torah says you shall place it al yadcha. You shall place it on your arm, and the word yadcha is with an extra hey at the end. Yadcha. There's a hey at the end, which shouldn't really be there. So the Talmud explains that it's an allusion to the weaker arm, Yad Keha, the weaker arm. So how do we know which is the weaker arm? We assess which arm is the one you primarily use. That's the stronger arm, and the other arm is considered the weaker one. And there's a whole debate whether it's the hand you write with or the hand you work with. I'm not going to go. Sometimes you have people that are kids that are ambidextrous. They're switch hitters. They can work with both arms. What do you do then? Then you go to a rabbi to try to figure that one out. There's enough commentary written on that, pages and pages in the Talmud and the response about what do you do with the child that's not a righty or a lefty, and what do you do when someone doesn't have an arm, God forbid. So where do you put the tefillin then? Right? And there's a whole debate about that. You put on the left arm, on the other arm. What do you do if someone doesn't have an arm? I remember there was once a bar mitzvah boy that went to the Rebbe. So he made a whole pilpul in honor of his bar mitzvah. He made a whole explanation. What does someone do if he doesn't have an arm? So it was a young boy. So the Rebbe asked him the question, and what do you do if you don't have a head? So where do you put the tefillin then? So the boy was thinking, and he was making a whole pilpul. He's making like a whole thing on the pasuk. It says you should place it on the arm and the head. So how can you put it on the hand if you don't have a head? The Rebbe says, if you don't have a head, you're not alive. Unfortunately, today we have many leaders who don't have heads, and they think they're still alive. That's the way it's going around the world today. But they're putting on tefillin without a head. So you need to have a head. That's a prerequisite for tefillin. But what's important over here is, I think, Torah is telling us basically the whole. Why do we put on the left hand? Because you're supposed to put on the weaker arm. And the simple explanation is because usually you need a hand to put the tefillin on with. So there's the hand that's putting on the tefillin. That should be the hand you're more familiar with. And the other arm should be the one you're putting the tefillin on to. Okay, so but there's a deeper explanation is that as Jews, we are given a mission. The mission of the Torah, the mission statement of the Torah, is to always help out the weaker, the underdog. To always help out someone that's the orphan or the widow. Or the whole Torah speaks about that. The convert, the one that needs help. Remember, you were always converts. You also came from Egypt. The slave, the servant. The Torah always tells us to bring cheer to the poor, give them food, right? To the sick, visit the sick, go to the hospitals and visit them, cheer them up, give them a phone call. It all lies in the mitzvah of tefillin. The stronger arm must prop up the weaker arm. The Torah wants us to put tefillin where? On the arm that's weaker. So that's really what the whole Torah is about. That which is stronger, helping out that which is weaker. And that's really what the whole world, why did God create? And many commentators said, why did God make rich people and poor people? Because he wanted to teach us that the rich person must help the poor person. Why did God make stronger people and weaker people? So the stronger person should help the weaker person. And then the stronger person gains from helping. We gain from. We think giving is a selfless act. No, it's a selfish act. It helps us. And that's expressed in the mitzvah of tefillin. Right? So this is the tefillin. So you just go back a little bit. Let's go look a little bit. So that's the hand tefillin. The hand tefillin is on the weaker arm. The hand tefillin we create the 7 and the 3. I gave you a lot of mystical explanations, the sfirot and everything, and the tefillin is wrapped in the marriage of God, the connecting to God, the connecting of the mind, the heart, but I just want to focus a little bit on that tefillin of the head now. So the tefillin of the head. Remember, you place the tefillin like over there. You see, you put it on. That's where the tefillin goes. And there's a knot in the back, goes back here. The tefillin goes like that. Right? So the tefillin go on the head. Remember, there's the 3 and the 4, right? So the different commentators say why is the 3 and why is the 4? So some explain it's 3 is for the 3 patriarchs. And the 4 is for the 4 matriarchs, right? There's 3. Who knows 3? I know 3. Who knows 3? 3 are the fathers, and 4. Who knows 4? 4 are the mothers. So you have 3 for the fathers. So that's what you have to always remember. On your head has to be etched the 3 and the 4, and they're interchangeable. The fathers and the mothers, they're all like one existence. Actually, if you take a shin, you create a shin in an imprint. You imprint it in a piece of parchment, a piece of or into anything. If you print it in, so you'll find there's 3 and there's 4. So let's say if you're engraving, you'll find that there are 3 heads that are engraved inside, but in order to create 3 heads, you need to have 4. Because there's the outside part which creates the outside walls which create the engraving. Or the opposite, if it's sucked out, so you have the 4 on the outside. So 3 and 4 really are really the shin is expressed in the number 3 and the number 4. Remember, number 7 over here is a very big thing. So when you have 3 plus 4, you get 7. Remember, 7 is the 7 emotions, the 7 connections, the 7 attributes of God, 7 days of the week. Number 7 is always mystically one of the most important numbers possible. You get 3 plus 4, you get 7. So we have over here, that's the tefillin on the head. And then we have the tefillin on the head, actually, there's 2 strings that come out. So you wear it, it comes out actually, the 2 strings hang over each side. If you give a look, I'm going to show you here, one is longer than the other. Okay, one of them, the one on the right side I think is shorter, the one on the left side is longer. Not sure exactly, so I'm not sure. The one, actually the right is longer. The right is longer than the left side. The left side is the shorter, always left is shorter. So the right side is longer, the left is shorter. So you have 2 strings that come down. So remember, the whole idea of the tefillin is, in addition to drawing down and aligning our minds and our hearts with God, it's about connecting to the world. It's about bringing the message that after we connect ourselves to God, we need to sort of like, we act as conduits, we act as channels to perfect the world. And so the two strings, one of them goes down to the heart, reaches down to the heart. Again, it's about taking the intellect and our intellectual connection and drawing it down to our heart and to the hearts of the world. And then it goes further, it goes even lower. The second one, the left side, goes even lower. That represents the some say it goes down to the reproductive system. In other words, we should be reproductive, and to draw down the divine light to our families, to our children, to our reproduction. Some say it goes to the digestive system, which is about taking godliness and digesting it, and thereby bringing it to, the digest. You take food, you swallow food. What's the digestive system? It's to draw out the energy from that and to share it with the rest of the body. So the second strap goes down to the digestive system, points to the digestive system, which is about taking that divine energy and assimilating it into the rest of the world, bringing it into the rest of the world. Others say it's pointing to the reproductive system, which is around the same place, which is about having children and bringing children into the world, and that's what the second string goes down to show the concept of reproduction. But most important, that the tefillin symbolizes drawing down the light of God and aligning ourselves with it. And then when we align ourselves with God, we are capable of bringing peace to the whole world, of correcting the entire world. And hence, the tefillin is brought down in the Torah. It says, "And the nations of the world shall see the name of God upon you, and they will respect you." That's what it says in the Torah, in Parshas Kitavon, the book of Deuteronomy. It says, "And the nations of the world will see that the name of God is lying upon you, and they will fear you. But I think a little more, they will respect you. The Talmud says that this verse refers to the tefillin. Elu tefillin sheberosh. It refers to the tefillin on the head, because the hand tefillin could be covered, you don't see it. The tefillin on the head that they see, the nations of the world see the tefillin, v'yadu mimek, and they will honor you, respect you. So I think, like, obviously, if you see a Jew with tefillin on the head, it's like, why do you get scared of it? Well, what the heck is this? But more than that, it has a spiritual calming effect on the whole world. And how is that? Why is the tefillin bring peace to the whole world, bring respect to the whole world? How is that to happen? We understand. So the answer is, when Jews are aligned with God, then the whole world is aligned with God. When we put on the tefillin, which the tefillin represents aligning our mind, aligning our heart, marrying God, when we are connected to God properly, then the whole ecosystem, spiritual ecosystem, works correctly too. And there's respect for the Jewish people, but there's respect for God, and there is respect for God's world. In fact, the Kabbalists write that why is the tefillin made out of parchment, out of cow hide? Why is it made out of something like that? Like, you would think it should be made maybe out of something more spiritual. God should say, words of prayer. But why are we told we have to take it and write it on a parchment, and place the parchments in a box made out of leather? These are all like from a cow that doesn't know what's coming off. Right? Why? The answer is, no, that's part of what the whole thing is. The whole purpose of the tefillin is to bring alignment, spiritual alignment to the whole world, and to bring the holiness of God down to the lowest level. This is what this mitzvah is all about. It's about drawing the spirituality of God all the way down to the physical world. So when we are aligned with God, then the whole world becomes aligned. That's the concept of the two strings that go down to the world. There's a lot of symbolism involved in the whole thing. I'm just giving you a little touch of what tefillin is about, and therefore the Lubavitcher Rebbe, just before the 6-Day War, when it was very, very tense, then the Rebbe says, if you want to protect Israel, we should all go out and put on tefillin. And he started then what's known today as the Chabad Tefillin campaign. He started that in the 6-Day War, and he said, because the whole world is in such a challenging position, the Torah says that the nations of the world will see the tefillin upon you, and they will respect you. So if Israel wants respect from its neighbors, it's going to come through the mitzvah of tefillin. And he got all the soldiers and everybody, then they went out and they put on tefillin with everybody. We all know 6-Day War was a very successful campaign, and Israel actually gained amazing respect in the world. If you want to think of a moment that was a changing moment in the history of Israel, it was the 6-Day War. After that, everyone said, Israel, wow, they're a superpower. But people don't know the background of the tefillin. So when the Jews are spiritually aligned, then we bring respect and honor in the whole world, and through that we bring peace to the whole world. So let us hope and pray that Oseh Shalom ben Ramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Al Kol Yisrael V'Imru Amen. So that's it, folks. Any questions on what I said about tefillin today? About the Kabbalah of Tefillin?
Rabbi,
Yeah?
can you hear me?
I can hear you well.
Rabbi, I want to tell you, we always enjoy your shiurim, and we hope to see you again next week. And don't forget, it's Rabbi Gittin's birthday this weekend as well.
Very good. But don't forget, but we're wishing Basil. We're all going to sing a happy birthday to Basil. So please join me in the happy birthday, Basil, on his big 90th birthday. Because 90 is big, because in Hebrew, the Hebrew letter for 90 is tzaddik. That's the Hebrew letter that's associated with it. So when you reach 90, that's associated with righteousness.
Yeah.
Tzaddik, tirdoif. So it should be a year of tzaddik, and you should have, please God, many long life and good health. You should have long life and good health. So let's all sing for Basil. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Basil. Happy birthday to Basil. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. We have every Feliz.
More healthy and happy ones.
Amen. Did anyone have any questions, or we're good?
We're good.
We're good.
Okay,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Have a great day and a good Shabbos.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
See you all. Take care. Bye-bye.